Hey everybody, Matt Cribbs here, and welcome to another Wednesday morning drive. You're in a new place today. You're now in the middle. You were off to the one side, now off to the other. Now you're in the middle. We'll see how it goes. You get to see my steering wheel here a little bit, but hey, it's worth a shot. We're giving it a try. We're trying something new. Hope you're doing well. I'm doing really good. Still pushing to try and get 500 subscribers. It's a milestone I want to reach because I got some good stuff coming out. I'll tweet out some previews of it. Maybe it's a brand new branding, brand new theme for everything. Working hard on it, but hope you're going to like it. Certainly fun using the tools. Whoa, hey, that's going to be an interesting thing. When I turn, you go away. Forgot about that. Anyway, deal with that for now and whatever. I'm still researching a good, flexible tripod dashboard mount phone holder thing that can, one, work with the weirdly shaped curved dashboard of my Honda Civic I have here, and two, hopefully be flexible enough that in the future I'm planning on eventually using a GoPro for this and some other things. But hopefully in the future be able to be flexible enough to work for that too. So just want to, just still doing the research on that one and looking for things. Any suggestions, of course, let me know down in the comments. Anyway, sorry I got a little distracted. A cop was sitting there on the side of the median. And your mind tends to wander when you see those things. So still pushing on that, still working on good things. Another thing coming up, tweeted out, Ars Technica. Ars Technica is a great community, great group. Good stories coming on, but their forums are also great. They did a story on the history of the first-person shooter, which I'm actually working on. If you had, not that story, but if you saw I tweeted out, I installed Wolfenstein the other day, Castle Wolfenstein, and I got a whole bunch of other ones. Doom, Quake, Duke Nukem, Rise of the Triad, Hexen, all sorts of other of those early first-person shooter games. The games I grew up on, the games I first started playing on. And I'm going to be playing through at least the first level of those and getting them out. And, doing a kind of mini-series on that. Hey, there's the back of my steering wheel. Doing a mini-series on that. So really exciting stuff, really cool. It's going to be fun, I think. I know it's going to be fun. Of course it's going to be fun. So see you there. Join me on that one. Anyway, that's an update for what's going on. In the news. Not this week, not last week. Actually, I believe it was the end of January. There was something really monumental that happened. And I haven't talked about it yet. But Google DeepBrain project? Something. Google AI research. I think it's Google, or either Google or Alphabet, whatever their that company is called. I don't know which group it falls under, but Google has a project focused on AI research, and AI research is really cool, really hard stuff. We have no idea how our brains work, so trying to figure out how to do that in a computer is just, amazing stuff. And it's been slow progress working on the problem little by little since, computers were first around. But they hit a milestone, and the computer finally beat a master of Go, the game of Go. Wei Chi? Probably mispronounced that in Chinese, or Wai Chi. I don't know how it's pronounced at all, actually. But Go. It is and probably there's two things I need to explain. One, what is Go and why is it significant? And two, AI in general and how that's going and what they're doing on that. So we'll start with Go because that's probably the easier problem, which is funny because it is one of the world's hardest problems. If you know, we solved chess quite a while ago, right? There's chess programs. Deep Blue beat Kasparov. What is it with AI and deep? They like the word deep. Anyway, AI, Deep Blue, beat Kasparov years and years ago. 80s? Someone look it up. Tell me when it was. It happened. Maybe 90s. And there's been AI problems. AI programs that can beat the best chess masters in the world on a reliable basis. The chess problem is, for all intents and purposes, solved. We have made a machine that can do it better than we can do ourselves. And, chess is kind of regarded as a complicated game for people. It's got, a lot of strategy, it's got a lot of rules, it's got, all this culture around it that, smart people play chess. But as far as games go and as far as problems go, chess is actually fairly simple. The number of spots on the board, it's a king, bishop, rook, knight, so 1, 2, 3, it's an 8x8 board, something like that. I don't play chess. I know the rules. I played it a little bit. I follow, I can appreciate when you see a good person play. But, it's played on a fairly small-ish board, same size as checkerboard, and it's got, a number of pieces. And so it is a problem that can be solved with, a combination of techniques. You take some pre-built moves in certain situations. You do this type of thing, like a library of moves. You can do some, lookups where the board states on, this is the state of the board, so the computer really quickly plays through a bunch of different possible moves and it evaluates which move is going to get in a better position. You can't do that from the very beginning of the game. There's kind of too many permutations of the game, but the problem space, the size of number of possible moves in chess is small enough that is a technique that can be used to help a computer learn. And you can do machine learning. You can basically have a machine, a program that learns how to do things over time. And that's a fundamental AI technique that's being used more and more and more and more and more, and we're making a lot of progress in. And we'll talk a little bit more about how that works when I talk about the AI portion of it. But, so, you have all this stuff, and you have all these different techniques, and I don't know how Deep Blue works. I'm sure there's papers out there. Go find it. Wikipedia, probably a good place to start. But, they figured out a problem how to do this. Go, in comparison to chess, is like chutes and ladders in comparison to chess, except the other way. Go is tremendously more difficult. It's a hugely more complex problem. So, and the reasons for this are some guy just completely drove in front of me. So that blew. And it looks like they're doing road work up ahead, so I'm going to have to turn from my normal route. Wow! That guy just completely ran a stop sign and pulled out in front of me. Anyway, what was I talking about? Go. Yes. Go. Tremendously more complex. And I can't see crap here, so I'm going to take a shortcut. Go, dude! Thank you. Bad turning lane. So in order to do this, we're going to make, 3 lefts to make a right? We're going to go in a circle and get back to get there. Man, I hate when they close this road up, it makes it very, very difficult to get around. So I'm on a residential street a little bit too, so I need to kind of pay attention to what I'm doing. Not that I don't on the other streets, have to do that as well. Anyway, Go! Back to that topic. Go is so much more difficult because, one, it has a bigger board. The Go board is 19 by 19. Squares. That the number of possible places on a Go board are so much bigger than a chessboard. And I'm not going to do real-time math with squares and stuff, but calculate yourself. It's a lot bigger. Number two, the rules are actually kind of simpler than chess. You have white stones and black stones. It looks a lot like Othello. You have white stones and black stones, and you put them down on the corners of the grid that make up the board. And when you surround an opponent's pieces, like if you have a point in the middle and you have 4 on all 4 sides of it, you capture that piece and it goes away. And that's really the rules of Go. There's some rules around, like you can't just make the game flip-flop back and forth. You can't have like two pieces and then just capture each other's pieces back and forth and have the game just keep going like that. That's not something that can happen, and there's rules to stop that. But anyway, there's not a lot of rules, but with that amount of space on the board, there's just a tremendous amount of complexity and strategy that is generated by, this size of space and this size of board. So, looking at that, one of the techniques I talked about, right, taking a state of the board and finding all the places it can go, all the possible moves, and deciding which one is best, can't even begin to try that. I believe it is the number of possible states on a Go board is larger than the number of atoms in the known universe, or something like that. It's a tremendously large number. It's a large enough number that if you tried that, the program you would not be alive by the time the program came back with an answer. And probably it would run out of memory, it would run out of disk, everything would be done. You can never do that. You would never be able to solve the problem that way. And it's big enough that you can never even really get a little useful information that way. So, that's a technique that's taken off the table. And, as far as a library of possible moves, that's another thing that's very difficult because there's so much variation. There's so many possibilities. Also, a limitation of that technique, and it applies to chess too, but if you try to teach a computer by just programming in a bunch of rules from an expert, that will make you, at best, that will get you a program that is as good as people, but won't be better. So how do you get past that, and how do you do that? You have this huge problem space, you have this huge thing. Well, enter machine learning and AI and how they do that. And it's at its simplest, and I'm not going to go into all the details because there's, that's a doctorate degree, and there's people who research this and full time, and that's their job. So we'll dramatically simplify how this machine learning works, and there's all sorts of other techniques. But basically, at its core, you make a program that is to make a decision. And you say, all right, these are the variables, these are the things, the inputs. This is the data you can use to make this decision. Let's make a simple thing. We'll make it a program to decide if a shape is a square. Okay? So we're making an artificial intelligent program to decide if a shape is a square. And you give it a bunch of inputs. And so you say, I don't know, color of the shape. You give it the number of straight lines detected in a shape. You give it the number of sharp angles detected in the shape. And you use, vision or image analysis to look at the shape and say, oh, this is contrasting colors or two lines that form in there. And you figure that out. But you give it these inputs. And then you don't tell it, all right, if something has 4 corners and 4 straight lines, and those 4 straight lines are all the same length, then it is a square. You don't tell it that. Instead, you give it these inputs, number of lines, length of the lines, number of corners, color, whatever it is, and then you give it, and then you write the program in such a way that it can say, okay, given these things, this thing is a square. And you kind of use math and there's neural networks, there's all sorts of things you can do. But basically, you give it a bunch of math formulas, for lack of a better term, specificity, that's something like that. You give it a bunch of tools that it can say, all right, so we'll kind of use a simple neural network, I guess, as an example. So say this program is people. So you give it 20 people, and it's a room of 20 people. I'm modeling the program here, and then you give them all these inputs. So you give them these pieces of paper that have corners 4, lines 4, length 5, and all these different data points we talked about. And each person has kind of like one job, and one thing to look for, and they have a flag. And if the thing they're looking for is true, they raise their flag. So one person might be looking and say, is number of corners equal to 4? And if so, he raises his flag. And another person might look for, is the color green? And if it is, he raises his flag. And there's a reason I'm using color, even though color has nothing to do with a square. And that's that. Well, we'll get to it. So you have all these people, and each thing looks at, and they raise their flag. And then you have some people who says, well, if Bob's flag and Jenny's flag are up, I'm going to raise my flag. And then all these things, they talk together, and they all make very simple decisions, and they talk together. And at the end, you have one person, you have the output that says one person whose job says, is this a square? And all he's doing is looking at the other inputs, and he says, yes, it is a square. So it comes back. And so, and a real difficult AI problem is going to have, hundreds or thousands or millions of these little decision type points. And this is very, very simplified. But, they'll do it like that. And so you just make these little things and you give it inputs. And you don't necessarily say, well, you don't say, Bob, you go look at corners. And if it's, 4, you just say yes. You just give them all these tools. You put them in the room, and each thing can make a yes or no decision based on something. And then you give it a whole bunch of squares or a whole bunch of pictures, and you give it an answer key, and you say, this is a square, this is a square, this is not a square, this is a square, this is not a square, this is a square. And it learns. It goes through this program, and it comes up with outputs and configurations of all the little people raising their flags, all the little nodes saying yes or no, and it compares the answer it got with the answer key, the cheat sheet you gave it, saying, this was a square. And it will, if it was wrong, it will adjust. If it was right, it will reinforce that configuration is correct. And you do this a bunch and a bunch and a bunch and a bunch and a bunch. You give it a bunch of inputs, you have it do its thing, you give it a whole bunch of outputs, and you tell them whether it's a square or not. And after a while, the computer will tune itself. The math variables will level out, and the configurations will tune themselves to say what squares are. And the crazy thing is, you don't know necessarily how it works. You'll say, it might be easy to say for a person, if it's got 4 corners and straight lines, it's a square. But, it might come up with some other tests that you use, and you can't necessarily figure them out. So, a lot of the times with these smart programs, it'll do something and you have no idea why it did that. This is also how captures work, and speech recognition and handwriting recognition and all this stuff. But it'll come up with these things, and you don't know why it made that decision. Some of it could be bad data. Say I give it a whole bunch of training data, that test where I give it the answer keys, and the squares just happen to be green. Well, it might use that piece of data, that color data that's being fed into it, and say, oh, things that are green are more likely to be squares. Well, that would be wrong, and then you start giving it a green circle, and it would say, yup, it's a square, because you gave it bad data. You taught it the wrong thing. But it can also use data that you would never in a million years think would be useful, and determine that, and make the right decisions off of it. So it's really, really cool. And, that's how the machine learning works. If you've seen those pictures of Google's AI spits out pictures of a dog, and the dog is made out of a whole bunch of eyeballs and stuff, that's basically the output of, it's an output of a internal representation of their machine. Google Write has a lot of, has a bunch of things that recognize images really well. And so they wrote a program that took that internal state of the neural network that we human beings can't see. You can't look at the program and see what it's doing. So, oops. Sorry, you fell over. So they wrote a program that took its internal state and then generated outputs from it. So instead of saying, here's a dog, is this a dog? They said, all right, take what you know and draw what you think a dog looks like. And, you can kind of see that representation that it doesn't look for fur and four legs and floppy ears and a snout necessarily. It looks for all these swirls and use these things that, other shapes, eyeballs that look like it. And it makes all these complex comparisons that human beings would never do. But it knows that's a dog. So, really interesting stuff. And that's the technique they use, machine learning. They actually gave this massively complicated program a whole bunch of moves from a human beings, top experts, and said, this is how good people play Go. And then they made it play itself millions and millions, a bunch of times, lots and lots of times. And every time it played itself, it won. It taught itself a little bit more. And just keep going like that over and over. And I don't know, I need to read more into it. I don't know if we have any idea how it's doing what it's doing. Probably not. It's making decisions that we don't know. So anyway, I thought it's really cool. Love the topic, love artificial intelligence, love the game of Go. I'm a very, very horrible player, but I try to play it as well. And just thought it was really, really interesting. And so hopefully that was interesting as well. Anyway, I will talk to you later. Until next time, keep playing, never stop. Trying to come up with tagline. Don't like that one. Never stop playing. Later. Bye.